Hey, I'm going to give you some creative writing advice today through some questions, creative writing tips, and we're going to do a question of the day and kind of think about how can we come up with some new strategies to really improve our characters' strength and weakness. And then join me for my 30-minute a day writing challenge where I create this full-length novel and I'm about 30-40% of the way through it, and we'll do that together. Welcome to Kauffman Writes. I'm Kauffman, and this is my daily creative writing live stream where I try to come up with different strategies, segments, and we talk about all things creative writing. We're going to hop right into your creative writing questions answered. And before we begin, if you have any creative writing questions, problems that you need help with, drop it in the comments below, and I'd be more than happy to give you some feedback. All right. And we're going to hop straight into question number one. I feel burnt out, but don't know. But all right. Question number one. I feel burnt out, but don't want to stop writing. What should I do? So I think what's really important with this one, let me pull this up. All right. So what I want you to go do is I want you to take a break. That's right. I want you to go give yourself a breather. I know before you go away, like I know you weren't expecting that. Whenever we get burnt out, that's our body trying to tell us that we need to do something differently. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to go grab a piece of paper, grab whatever your notes app is, and write down, I am going to take a break from the story or from this piece of writing for dot, dot, dot. Now, depending on how much of a breather you need, maybe you need 1 week, maybe you need 2 weeks, maybe you need a month. And that just depends on what you are dealing with in life. If you're going through a lot in your life right now, or let's say maybe you just published a novel, like maybe you do need to take a break and you really need to think about it. So I want you to write down, I'm going to take a break for 2 weeks. That's right, 2 weeks. And then at the end, write what is the day you're going to return to writing. So that way you're intentional. A lot of the times when I see writers take a break because they're burnt out, it usually it usually results in them taking a break and then coming back a year later. We don't want to do that. I want you to come back and get back into your flow of creative writing, shortly, but everyone needs a breather. So that's my advice. Don't be burnt out. All right. So right along to question number two. I want to get my work read, but whenever I ask others, they don't seem like they want to. What should I do? I see this. I see this so often whenever creative writers online are asking for advice, whenever they're asking for feedback, and whenever they post stuff, whether that's on forums or on social media or when they go to writers group. And that's all right. If you want your work read and you want your work critiqued, that is okay, because we all want to have our stuff improved upon. Now, here's my advice. If you want to get your work improved, you have two options. Option A, hire somebody who's going to help you improve your writing style and improve the overall flow of your creative writing, and they'll help you put together a portfolio for whatever it is that you want to succeed. But let's say that you want to go the more cost-effective option. And what we see a lot of the time is you can then go onto a writers group. I would suggest going to Facebook, go into the creative writers group on there. There are over 200,000 creative writers on there. Or go onto whatever social media and just type in creative writing. What you want to do is you want to find a community of creative writers and then directly message somebody and say this. I wrote a story. I would need to improve a portion of it or my excerpt, but I would be willing to check out or read a portion of your work, and that way we can trade value. Because the goal is you want to trade value for value because most writers want a portion of their work read. So that would be my advice. trade an excerpt for an excerpt and vice versa. And that way you can still continue to get pieces of your writing improved over time. All right. And question number 3. I started a new story, but it feels like there's something missing. How can I tell what it is? So, a lot of the times when we get stuck, the thing that I really want you to think about is what is the message? What is the theme? What is the story that you're trying to tell? A lot of times we come up with an idea and then we just like start going to the page and then we don't actually know what it is that we want to write. Now, that's all right. If you just want to go, if you're the type of writer where you're just like, I'm going to go and write and see what happens, that is okay. This is going to be more if you're stuck and you're like, all right, well, what do I do? Something's missing. So what I want you to do is if you could sum up your hero's journey in a single statement, in a single sentence, what would it be? I want you to go write that down. My hero is on a journey to save the princess, slay the dragon, and protect the kingdom. All right. Now, once you've written down that one story or that one statement, the next thing you want to ask yourself is what is the portion of your story that you're on where you feel like you are stuck? If you feel like, okay, so this creative writing story I've been doing, I have this hero and it feels like everything's too easy. If the story you're currently trying to write feels too easy, add more obstacles. Maybe the hero has to fight a dragon, an ogre, a demon, and a goblin to get to the end. Or let's say you feel like, okay, my story feels a little too difficult. It feels like they're stuck at every single part and it doesn't feel like they're growing. Create a supporting character, create an additional friend, create some other character who's going to help them to overcome their challenges and whatever obstacle they're trying to work through. Awesome. And let's see. Vaughn. Yeah, I'm super curious because I want you to develop a story about my mom who's 19 in a relationship with a 33-year-old man from the southern France who was this finance guru and brought her over from France from Newport Beach to learn about the French culture. Okay. And she was at University of Irvine for French studies. And he had a daughter that loved swimming, and she was 19, learning how to raise a young girl about 5 or 6. And I would love you to edit or help me develop the story because I'm going to assume you're continuing this because I'm still working on it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for messaging that. So part of my services that I provide, I actually am put together the world's first creative writing company, the Creative Ghost. If you want to reach out for creative writing services, consulting, I offer weekly creative writing consultation services, or I can work project by project and I could bring the story to life together for you. So if you're hopping into the live stream or the replay, let's see. I don't have a link set up, so I'll just post the website in the comments. There you go. So I just threw that up in the comments. There's somewhere where you can go to check it out. But thanks for posting that, Vaughn. I know I'd definitely be happy to help you out. Let's see. I highly recommend. I did my agricultural father, and I'm developing a city woman from Newport Beach experience from France. And aw, thank you so much, Vaughn. I really appreciate that. We had a lot of fun working on that story, didn't we? I think it's always really exciting whenever I get to help other types of creative writers, and regardless of skill level or where you're at, it's just a matter of what's the story that you're trying to tell, what's the story that you want, and then how do we bring it life. We go through the outline, character development, through all the different stages, and if it's based off a real story, then we're just going through it in a little bit of a different process. Nonfiction is it's a different type of storytelling, but at heart, it is still storytelling. Just because you're not fighting and dealing with a dragon and demons and beasts doesn't mean that you're not dealing with the same types of dragons, demons, and beasts in a nonfiction story. So, but yeah, Vaughn, thank you again. I really appreciate that. All right. So, and once again, let me just add this. If you found any value from these questions or from anything that we've talked about so far, make sure to like and or subscribe this video or this live stream. And that way you'll be alerted when I come out with new daily live streams. This creative writing live stream is daily, or creative writing tips, strategies, and tricks videos at Kauffman's Corner. I got you. I'm on a mission to help creative writers everywhere, and I'm trying to connect with creative writers all around the world. So come join me. All right. And let's hop over to, I'm going to throw up the question of the day. What is your favorite character's strength and weakness? So, sharing out. Oh, that's awesome. So I was thinking about this question and I'm like, all right, what's your favorite character's strength and weakness? So first off, think about what is your favorite character first off. There, oh, let's see. I would say I'm my story I'm working on Last Scarecrow. It's probably actually it might be the robot character actually. I'm like, so if you've been joining me previously, I've been working on this novel, feature length novel. And I just created this character called the Last Robot, where he kind of like explores and explains the history of what happened to the world. But he's not around for very long. He just kind of like set up the hero with the journey and then he died. But I think the way that I wrote it, I think it's engaging. Strength is that he had the capability to withstand the destruction of time. He's probably been around for a very long time. Weakness is what was his? I think I would say that his strength and his weakness are both physical limitations because both his strength that has allowed him to survive for so long has also made it impossible for him to travel very far because he has to maintain himself based off this liquid that he needed to survive. So we get introduced to him very briefly. He explains the history of what's going on, why he summoned the scarecrow to what was happening, and then no more from the Last Robot. It's nice knowing him. But he was definitely a fun character to develop. I know, let's see, Vaughn. So I know you said you mentioned Sherry, his experience. Sherry now is any creative writing. Was that a creative writing a character? Ah, let me know if there's any like strengths, weaknesses that come to mind. All right. Welcome to Kauffman Writes. If you're just hopping in, we're just answering the question of the day. What is your favorite character's strength, weakness? Drop it in the comments below. I'm going to hop over to my 2024 Creative Writing Challenge, where I'm writing 30 minutes a day, every day for 1 year. And come write with me if you're feel like you've been procrastinating or you have writer's block, or you can just listen in as I narrate and throw up some cool music. All right. So I'm going to start throwing this up, and let's say I got another comment. Vaughn, I wish I could develop people. I use people for my real life experiences. Every person I create an imaginary land. Is this weird, fluffy character? I wish I could develop people. I use people for my real life experience. Person I create an imaginary land. Is this weird? Not that. That's actually not weird at all, man. With I would say 99% of the time, writers draw from the world and from people that they know. Even in the most like fantastical pieces of fiction out there, the characters at heart are a lot of times based off people that the writers interact with, maybe family, friends, maybe somebody they've researched, something that's going on in the world. That's actually very common because we relate with people, right? And at the core of starting a character, you're starting with somebody you know. Now, with nonfiction a lot of time, you don't with nonfiction, you don't obviously it's since it's more tends to be based off real life and real stories, it's a little less removed from a fantastical element. I think as the writer, it's your creative decision how close or how far you want to stick with whoever the original like source material is. And I would say there's no right or wrong way with it. Yeah, I'd say there's no right or wrong answer to that. With some writers, copy people word for word, take their strengths, weaknesses, habits, traits, and turn them into great, believable characters. Other writers use them as like a model and then change and adjust everything about them. Because if we want to connect with people, like that's or we want to connect with characters and based off real people. And I think is it like make for a fluffy character? Not necessarily. I think if you're writing a character, let's see if no thanks. I'm just reminded of those jumpers who are going over the high jump with their pole and trying to get as close to the character as I want. But I also kind of want them to reach a high standard for their jump. Yeah. Yeah. So, and I think that's the creative challenge right there, right? So you have a character, right? You have the base for it. You're like, all right, I'm basing it off my best friend, right? My best friend is funny, they're charismatic, life of the party, but their life is a complete shit show, right? Hence good drama. So I want to base it off this friend. Now the more I write the stories about this friend, the more I'm like, I get some great stories, but it feels like what actually happened based off like what could happen. Like I feel like I could actually push the stakes up more. And I think as a storyteller, that's the creative or creativity right there. Right. So I think like if you're creating a character and they deal with a drug problem, for example, but they like kind of go back and forth. Maybe they go to rehab, maybe they don't, and then they overcome it. It's like, cool, there's some good drama right there. But if I really wanted to like elevate that, if I really wanted them to get that like that high jump, like they have to hit a rock bottom. Like if I'm going to read a story or if I'm going to watch something about a character who has to overcome some sort of addiction, they need to hit some type of metaphorical, physical, literal rock bottom for me to really want to in follow through the whole journey because like those are the stakes. Now, whether or not that person in real life actually did, we now have to add on and elevate that for storytelling. And then that's what makes the engaging story. Actually, interesting fact. I don't know. Let's see. I don't know if you knew this or not, but Breaking Bad. If you've ever watched Breaking Bad, was actually based. The original story was actually based off a newspaper article that Vince Vaughn read that happened to some man in Texas. Now, if you're not familiar, I mean, Breaking Bad is science chemistry teacher, learns he has cancer, and becomes a drug kingpin to survive, save his family, and whole anti-hero story. But that was the original story. And if I recall from the original article, the original story was science teacher sells drugs to make money to fight an illness. I don't know whether it was cancer. I don't know if there was a family, what the situation was, but that was the basic story. And then we saw Breaking Bad blew up into the phenomenon that it was. Like, did the actual original person actually become a drug kingpin? Probably not. Did the actual person nearly die of cancer? Maybe, maybe not. But all those things were added onto the storytelling, and then Breaking Bad became the incredible show that it did. If you haven't watched Breaking Bad, you should definitely check it out. It's good, very good storytelling. Whenever people ask me what shows I enjoy, I always Breaking Bad's one of the ones that come to mind because it does effective storytelling throughout the majority, over 90, 95% of the show. And that is a very difficult thing to do in this day and age because of the politics that goes with working not just with other writers, but with producers, studios, and all the people that want their values and opinions in the show or in the end product. Yeah. Yeah, that was that was actually the true story, which gave Vince Vaughn the original idea for Breaking Bad. I always thought that was really interesting. Um, yeah, so shows that were very well written, Breaking Bad. As I'm thinking of other shows, the very first season of Mr. Robot was incredibly well written because you had this anti hacker character who you kind of think is hearing voices and you're not sure, but his character journey over the course of the first season is done very, very well. Another show that did well was Last of Us. Once again, Vaughn, I know we talked about that on a previous stream, but Last of Us, great storytelling. One of the reasons that the video game did so well when after it originally came out. Let's see. Okay, well, I will talk to you Tuesday because France at this time. When I want the story doesn't have washing machines or even capacities of pools, it makes it sound like a poor area. And it makes it sound like a poor area from Newport Beach, but in France, the pool is amazing, and that's where the daughter is swimming, and my mom is taking care of this little 3-year-old for your 3-year-old. That's actually really cool, man. I'm going to have to hear more about it, especially if they're going through a journey through France. Yeah, so we'll talk more. What I always tell you if you're interested in getting like creative writing advice, or let's say you have like a creative writing story, or not even creator, you just have a life story and you're like, I need to bring it to life. I can actually bring it to life to you. All I need is I just ask a series of questions and then I come up with a short story and you can like give that to somebody or use it for yourself. It's actually really cool. I've been doing freelance ghostwriting for a while, and I think it's a lot of fun being able to help bring other people's stories to life. Excellent. And let's see, I need to throw in some music because I am very eager to hop into Last Scarecrow, as I'm now like getting into like the next part of this next part of my journey. Thank you so much. I'm blushing on the live stream. Thanks, man. Let's see. So when I was last doing, I'm gonna pull up my music, throw up my other screen. So with where I was at last with Last Scarecrow, where was I? All right, so I've hit about page 66 and no 65. All right, here we go. That's right. Okay, so like I know I was like, okay, what did I work on yesterday? So like it's interesting because I know that I hit such high emotional stakes with the characters and just exploring the world and having the Last Scarecrow like experience his first like watching like the first like creature that he had some type of connection with, the last robot, die after kind of sharing his life story, so to speak. So now he's been pushed. Yeah, I would say he's been pushed onto a brand new journey. And we're going to see how this journey takes off. It's going to be him and Mr. Crow. So as always, I'm going to bring myself back a little bit and see, where was I? All right, this feels good. All right. A terrible burden has been placed on me, however. The Last Scarecrow looked at the lifeless remains of the last robot. And I fear if I do nothing, none of us will survive. And then there will be no nest. Trust. Trust last robot, Mr. Crow said once without repeating. The Last Scarecrow smiled sadly with a new heaviness in his voice. What choice do we have? It all seemed real enough for me. It certainly explains the current state of New City. Shouldn't I be the one asking you that? You've been with him longer than I. Shouldn't I be the one asking you that? You've been with him longer than I. Trust you? At first, the last scarecrow was surprised by his friend's question. He had never considered himself to be a figure worthy of trust. He was simply a scarecrow with no idea who he was or what he was doing. The question made him smile a little more upbeat all the same. I trust you too, but no more tricks. The last scarecrow pointed at him with his free hand. It's a deal. It's a deal. Are you certain you want to join me, though? The horrors that this first demon is capable of sounds... The last scarecrow trailed off, trying not to get lost once again by the memory. It's a deal. It's a deal. Vanya asked a great question. I hate to interfere with her writing, but I'm curious, is there a plague on the earth now? Or has a diminished where the scarecrow is safe pursuing this adventure? So the way that it's worked out, so humanity is dead. Humanity is out of the picture. And essentially they've been destroyed as a result of two things. The environment, because the weather and the seasons have become so destructive within themselves, which is why most humans who were still alive retreated back to whatever remaining cities still existed. That's one. The second thing is actually three things really. But so the environment. Number two was the release of magic. Magic was released onto the world, and instead of helping humanity, it actually changed humans and it started killing them. And then the first demon was kind of the nail in the coffin. The first demon then started killing everything that was still left alive. So as a result of that, those things are all dead. Now we have the new scarecrow in this new post-apocalyptic Earth, where he's not a human, so he can't be changed by it. He's been kind of stuck in his field the whole time. And then part of this next section of his adventure is going to be him witnessing different parts of the Earth and what the current state of the world looks like now. So far in this journey, the first 40 pages is really just him traveling through these solo barren wastelands, because that is what most of the world has been left to. And now the second section of the journey is going to be him being introduced to some of the societies that are starting to form of creatures and animals that are still alive or coming to life. But that's a absolutely great question. I think as I wrote the first, as I've been developing the story, I think I really started finalizing more of what I wanted the history of the world to be. Probably when I hit that page 30 to 40 mark. So I know that when I go back into my second draft and I go through the second draft of it and I go through the first 30 pages, I know I'm going to have to adjust and tweak certain messages, statements, sayings, and background to better hint at and associate what type of world was left behind and to make that clearer. So great question. Thanks for asking. Yeah, actually what you should do instead of deleting them, well, I like how sharp concept that is. So with my storytelling, and I'll throw myself up for a second. So with my storytelling, I come up with a character. or I come up with a world, and then I think about what's like the type of message, theme, or story that I want to tell. The impact of the weather on humanity, on our current day and age, that's interesting to me. So that's part of the story. The impact of animals and how they're changing, and how a world where maybe animals are more human than what humans were like is interesting to me. And when I think of stories that I've heard, I haven't heard a story like that. And so like that, I'm like, that would be a fun story to tell. Then the more that I think about it, the more I just add details here and there. With what I would suggest when you're coming up with like characters, concepts, and worlds like that, don't delete the crappy ones, but just write down and make notes of all the characters that you want, because you're coming up with these character ideas for a reason, right? And you know that all it could take would be just adding more details and adding more development to a character to be able to improve it and get it to tell the story that you want to tell. At heart, if you feel like you're deleting crappy story or crappy characters, it could be maybe you're just not clear on like what's the overall story, the message, or the theme that you want to tell. That could be another thing as well. A Tuesday. Amen. We'll get some good work done. We'll be able to strategize. as I continue to write this, the last scarecrow, every single time I get to these moments of like drama, he's like, because he's terrified, right? He's like, what he's a scarecrow. What's he supposed to do against a demon who basically like tore like humans' faces off in like 2 seconds? But there's now like an air, once again, there's an air of brevity with the last scarecrow. I think I continue to really want to highlight how influenced he was by the creators of his time, that his farmers and creators who were with him. There's like this comedic irony where he pictured himself confronting the tiny red-winged creature only to have his face torn off. Let's see. You said, so are the seasons really screwed up? I don't really know when the Scarecrow is traveling. Can you explain? I'm trying to read. Yeah, so I would say with where I'm at in the story now, okay, so when I think about the story as a whole, the story, Scarecrow started in a field. Scarecrow chases the Crow, Mr. Crow, through a jungle, a cave, and a desert, right? Where basically it's just a lot of exploration. The world's pretty empty and that there's remains of creators everywhere. They exit the desert because they see a bright flashing light in the sky above the remains of destruction of New City. They approach New City, and Mr. Crow disappears. So the Scarecrow goes through New City to find Mr. Crow. As he goes through New City, he encounters a couple different characters, is really tested, and so far I've made a couple references to the weather. I would say when he's traveling through, I don't touch upon it too much in the field in the very beginning or in the jungle, and that's probably something I'm going to fix in my second draft. In the snow, I make it clear that he starts off, when he exits the cave, the desert that he left is a snowstorm. He saves the Crow. They go hide in that snow shelter, right? They wake up the next day and it's suddenly the middle of summer. Then Australia or New Zealand? That's actually a great question. I haven't actually determined where it takes place. I have not determined where it takes place yet, actually. That's a great question. I think that's something I'm still playing around with, in all honesty. What I'll probably do is, as I'm creating the story, and you can always go one of two ways, actually, when coming up with locations. So this is actually something I've dealt with. You can either go option A, pick a location that you know well enough and that you can have characters exploring it, or option B, create a fictitious location and make it sound kind of realistic. I want to say TV shows actually tend to do this a lot. They create fictitious locations based in and around areas. Really popular, let's see, just one that comes to mind, really popular location, The Office created Dunder Mifflin. I think the city and the town was entirely fictitious, but as a result of the show being so popular and them using the set, it kind of became like this little like town area. But yeah, that happens a lot in television. Where do I want this to take place, though? I'll figure it out. That's the overall location of the story, I think, is a little less important at this current point in time, as compared to probably like the seasons, the weather, and the character's journey. Probably what'll happen is I'll probably be working and writing on it, and then I'll get to some point, and I'll be okay, well, if he's explored this location, and this location, then it would make sense for it to be here. Or if I don't hit that point, then I'll probably just be like based on a post-apocalyptic world and kind of leave it in that. And I think that also kind of goes hand in hand with like, all right, how far into the future does this take place? And I think that's something I'm kind of figuring out as well. If our current year is 2024, is this the type of story where it takes place like a couple hundred years into the future? Or is this the type of story where it takes place like a couple thousand years in the future? And my gut is telling me it's going to be some type of cross in between the two of them. It actually could be interesting. I'm actually going to think about that, though, Vaughn. That's a really great question. Because the fun part about doing stuff that's based on a real city or real stuff is like, then when they go to a city, you can make a reference to like, oh, they came across the statue. It's actually the Statue of Liberty, but they come across the Liberty Bell, and you can like make a cool references that people are like, oh wow, I went to the Statue of Liberty yesterday. That's something I can relate to. So you can always do fun things like that actually with a world building. kind of funny. I think that this character is like, he's a crow, but I feel like I kind of write his dialogue as like a parrot. I don't know why, that's just the voice that comes to mind. Let's see, what to say. I met our AP history teacher at a church event for APS history that we both attended in Truckee at a kind of a bizarre mountaintop venue. And also I've contacted Dave Green. If you want to add any of those characters to your story there, oddballs, but I really love them. I mean, they're... drop this comment. So I think they probably were both very interesting characters, but in all honesty, I had such little interaction with either of them. Yeah, I honestly had really such little interaction with either of them when I was in school that I just don't really remember a lot of their characteristics and personality too much. Like, I'm trying to think about like teachers who I remembered Mr. Mooney and Mr. Talik. I remember because I dealt with them a lot. I remembered my English teacher, Miss... I forgot her name. I was like, God, but that was so long ago. Like, thinking back to some of my teachers. I think also with what's more challenging is because I left Truckee like right when I was 18. And in the, 10, 12, 15 years since, I've go back to Truckee maybe once a year, tops. And then now I don't even have family who lives there. So then when I do go back, it's like, okay, my networking, connecting with people is so limited. But you stayed at least within the area relatively, or you're back in the area. So it's like you probably have a much better understanding and connection with them. funny because you're super passing up on all my expectations. That's funny. By the way, if you're just hopping into the live stream right now, feel free to respond to the question of the day. Let's see, I'll throw that comment up there. What is your favorite character's strength or weakness? Drop it in the comments below. I want to hear. All right, and back to writing. Hey, welcome, Debbie. Thanks for the like. Oh, all right, perfect. I was like, I knew that I had to. Oof. Hit that page break. All right, let's see. Favorite character strengths and weaknesses in any novel or our own characters. My own so far would probably be from a recent first draft, Madison. She thrives despite her upbringing and fears. Her weakness is not asking for help. Interesting. I would say in whatever novel connects with you, whatever novel resonates with you. Yeah, or our own characters. I think when I posed that, I was like, all right, I think it's whatever character comes to mind. My own so far would probably be from my first recent draft of Madison. She thrives despite her upbringing and fears. Her weakness is not asking for help. That's actually a really good character weakness to have. I'm gonna drop this music. That is actually a really good character weakness to have, predominantly because so many of us, and like so many people I've met, struggle asking for help. So that's actually something that's very relatable. Yeah, I think whenever I come up with weaknesses, strengths and weaknesses, I always think about like what are things that people like really, really struggle with. Thanks for sharing. I'm like, interesting. What clearly, and it made me think about the scarecrow character that I'm creating. Like, what is his strengths and weaknesses? And I think strengths is probably courage and comedy. He likes to he uses comedy from a lot of his past situations. And then weakness was probably fear of fire. I mean, actually his weakness is that he just hasn't really experienced a lot of these real emotions before. So he's almost like not like a child, actually, in a sense. And I think that's part of what's fun. He doesn't know how to fight, but he's courageous. I'm like, as I'm continuing to think through like his character development, I'm like, all right, what are weaknesses that are going to serve him well in providing obstacles? But yeah, thanks for sharing. Thanks for hopping in and joining me. If you found any value today from questions, the storytelling, or you were able to write a little bit, please like and subscribe my stream, my stuff, my writing tips. I'm going to come out with more and more every day to help you become a better writer. My goal with this is for me, I was like, I'll write consistently, so that way I can improve day by day and bit by bit. But I definitely encourage you to join me. If you ever struggle with procrastination and or writer's block, I stream each and every day. I'm on a 366-day challenge. Let me throw up my times actually this week. I've been playing around with different times every week. I'll throw this up. Yes, I've been playing around with different times every week, but these are the times that I'll be live this week. If you want to join me on any future streams, I'll be here. Otherwise, I'll have daily creative writing videos and shorts that I'll be posting through my YouTube channel and our Facebook. Once again, let's see. Yep. Thank you for joining me. I'm going to sign off for the day. I'm Kauffman, and I'll catch you on the flip side.